Okay. Welcome everybody to the first session in our Modern Jewish Thinkers, which we really love doing every year because we get to pick people. I actually pick people who either I read and I loved and I wanted to share. That's my first one. My second one, which will be, I'm doing the bookends. I'm doing the beginning and the last one, is a book that I've wanted to read for a long time by Rabbi Jachter. So I'm excited because now it kind of forces me to read it to prepare, and I'm really enjoying it. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to read books or to, think in directions or to share things that I love. So today, I like to pick one man and one woman if I'm doing two sessions. Today is a woman who is a modern Jewish thinker. So perhaps she's not a philosopher who you might think of. Maybe she's not like the standard. She's not a rabbi, not that you have to be a rabbi to be a modern Jewish thinker. But I believe she actually fits this of modern. She's certainly Jewish. She's certainly a thinker. And I would say modern because she took the Gemara. She took stories from the Gemara and made them modern. I mean, that is literally the definition. And she's was a member of the Knesset in Israel, not today. She's a secular Jewish person, not a Dati person, did not grow up on learning halacha, learning Torah, I don't think. But for some reason, at some point, she became enamored by the Talmud, by the Gemara, and she became known for a person who taught a page of Gemara in the Knesset. Everybody here know what the Knesset is? Knesset is the Israeli government, the Israeli, I don't know what that's called, but the Israeli Senate, kind of, you could call it. And she actually taught a page of Gemara because she was so enamored. She's not in the Knesset now. Let me read you a little bit of what's on the back. Just let me show you. Wait, I'll spotlight. Oh, look at that. Rav Moshe Edelman has the same one. Okay, so it's called A Bride for One Night by Ruth Calderon, Talmud Tales. I'm going to reading you from the back of it. And it's actually, the book is, it's backwards. The book, it takes Talmudic tales that she found, maybe I would say disturbing or like not so easy, maybe misogynistic. I know a lot of our texts feel misogynistic. And she rethought them or spent time thinking about them. And I'm going to take one of them and go through it with you. Maybe I'll whet your appetite. We have a second copy in our library if anybody wants to borrow it. I found it fascinating to learn with her. And what she does is she takes what we're going to do actually is we're going to take the Gemara, we're going to learn the Gemara, we're going to talk about it, and then I'm going to do story time, and I'm going to read to you the story that she wrote. She writes a story based on each Gemara, and then we'll talk about the story and how it fits or doesn't fit. Everybody with me on that? I see some perplexity in your face, Carol. You good? You're okay? Great. Carol always matches beautifully from head to toe, just saying.
Yeah.
But let me read what it says. Ruth Calderon has recently electrified the Jewish world with her teachings of Talmudic texts in her, in this volume. Wait 1 second, I lost the Zoom, apologies. There we go. She offers a fascinating window into some of the liveliest and most colorful stories. That's another way of saying, well, some are a little bit racy and some are a little bit misogynistic, or they seem to be, or they're misunderstood, not understood. Like actually my favorite one is the one on Sota, which I find to be one of, as a lot of people find to be one of the more difficult passages in the Torah, but I'm not reading you that one today. That you'll have to read on your own. She rewrites Talmudic tales as richly imagined fictions, drawing us into the lives of such characters as the woman who risks her life for a sister suspected of adultery. That's the Sota one. A humble school teacher who rescues his village from drought, and a wife who dresses as a prostitute to seduce her pious husband in their garden. That's a good racy one, but I didn't pick that one either. Breathing new life into an ancient text. It's called A Bride for One Night because one of the texts is actually about being a bride, a rabbi who would go from, I know it sounds awful, would go from city to city and take bride for one night. No comment.
No comment.
It offers a surprising and provocative read, both for anyone already intimate with the Talmud, anyone interested in the Talmud. She has a doctorate in Talmud from Hebrew University. I guess she got interested into that, was elected to Israeli Knesset in 2013, and became a national celebrity when she taught a page of Talmud in the Knesset, arguing that the text was the heritage of the entire Jewish people. and she's a founder and director of Elul Beit Midrash. I know that program. Elul is the month before Rosh Hashanah, and it's a month of preparation. But in secular Judaism, they didn't really learn texts or prepare for the high holidays. So she started this Elul Beit Midrash, which is for the month of Elul in Jerusalem, and more. Okay, great. That is about her. Any questions before we go into the text? No? Okay. That is not helpful. 1 minute. Do you see this text on the screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the Talmud. We're actually going to read it in English, make it a little bit easier and go a little bit faster. Let me see. I'll make it a little bit bigger for people. How's that?
Fine.
Great. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa went and sat for 12 years in the study house, in a Beit Midrash, study hall. When he planned to return home, he said, I will not do what Ben Hakinai did. So that's a story of Ben Hakinai, who also went away for 12 or 13 years. And when he came home surprising his wife, she actually died out of surprise. Like she was had a heart attack, whatever it was. I'm not going to do what Ben Hakinai did. He stopped at the local study house, I think maybe local in his home, that's possible, and sent a letter to his wife. So he traveled the distance, stopped at the study hall, and sent a letter to his wife. Rabbi Oshaya, his son, came and sat before him. And remember, whatever's in parentheses are comments that I added. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa did not recognize him. He didn't recognize his son because it's been 12 years. So let's say his son was, I don't know, 10, maybe when he left, let's say. So now he's 22. Or maybe he was 13, bar mitzvah, and now he's 25. Okay? He asked him questions of law, meaning Rabbi Oshaya, his son, asked him, this stranger, I guess assuming, well, it's a person I don't know, it's a person who's older than I am. I'm going to ask him questions of law. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa saw that he was a brilliant student by his questions and grew faint. He said, if I had stayed here, I could have had a son like this one, not realizing it was his son. He went home. Rabbi Oshaya entered behind him. He didn't know why Rabbi Oshaya enters behind him. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa stood before him thinking he surely came to ask me another question of law. His wife said to him, does a father stand before his child? That's the story in the Gemara. And I would like to hear from people. Do you want me to share the file with you, by the way? Is that helpful or you don't need that? You would like that? Okay. Give me a moment. Just make sure everybody. I'm going to drop it then into the chat. Give me a minute. And then anybody can look at it as they wish. Okay, I would like to discuss the story, which I'm about to put up on the screen again.
How come they didn't introduce themselves to each other?
They
Okay,
did,
tell
but
me. That's a
the
great
son,
question.
but the son has a different name.
Well, yes, but I imagine that the son might have said, my name is Rabbi Oshaya ben.
Right. Full name.
Knows his father's name. I think that's a great question. I think, 1 second, Carol, 1 second. No, hold your thought 1 second. I want to give a teeny bit of framing and context. I want people to think about, what is the Gemara trying to tell us? The Gemara doesn't just randomly put stories in. There's a gazillion stories they could put in. They choose which stories to put in, and they want us to learn from the stories, something. So I want people to think about, what is the lens? What did they put in the story? What did they not put in the story? And what do we think the Gemara, the people who wrote the Talmud, want us to take? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it a lesson? Is it lauding someone? There are many, 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 many stories, but we're focusing on this one. So given that background, Carol already asked a question. She's saying, well, 1 second, that makes no sense to me. Don't people introduce themselves to each other? Don't they say, hi, I'm visiting, or ask something, and then say, my name is, what's your name? Just to get a name. So that's a really interesting question. I want to know, before you continue with whatever other question you have, Carol, does anybody have thoughts about that? Because clearly the story is leaving out, well, because it didn't happen. Because obviously if it had happened, what would have been? If he had asked him, what's your name? What would have been the consequence of that?
He would have realized it was his father,
Right.
And he would have realized it was his son.
his son.
Right.
So so that was great that you noticed that, because remember what it said here? Here I'm highlighting, if I had stayed here, I could have had a son like this.
So
Okay,
that's
so-
my question. Is this about why did he remove himself for 12 years from his family?
Okay, great. 1 second. Leela, sorry, you want to add a
I
question?
would like to say that I felt like it's about trust. So it's almost like a test that the son didn't, the son didn't reveal who he was because the father had gone away for so long. I mean, it feels like abandonment. So how could they trust him, or accept him to come back?
Right, nice. So you're saying that the way it's framed, it's like it's setting, the way they set up the story is that you already have, this is what I'm hearing you say, you already have foreshadowing that there's going to be a problem, right? That's because it doesn't make sense given what Carol said, given what Karen said, right? The whole thing is set up. There's problematic relationships here. So it's interesting. You're saying it has to do with trust, the problematic. So 1 second, Estelle, I'll get to you. I thought you were going to say, when you said trust, that when a son grows up without a father figure, maybe he doesn't know rules of etiquette. Maybe he doesn't know that you ask people where they're from, or maybe he doesn't, again, this is what I was thinking when you said trust. Maybe he doesn't trust older men, but what's interesting is he trusts him to ask him halachic questions, but not to create a warm social experience. And you wonder, is it because he didn't have one with his own father? So just by 3 questions, look how much you've opened. Estelle, what did you want to add?
My question is, wasn't this the norm at that time? Because I seem to remember, didn't Rabbi Akiva go away and study by himself for, 20 some odd years?
Yeah.
I'm sure he also left his family behind. Maybe this was the norm. Maybe this is what people did in those days.
So
I
what I
don't
want
know.
to say is, you are remembering that story. And remember, we have a third story of Rabbi Chakinai, because it's mentioned here that Rabbi Chakinai did that and then surprised his wife. There are more stories like that. As a matter of fact, the whole page of that Gemara is full. I just picked one story. So I want to say it a little bit differently. That the reason, so one thing you could say is everybody did it, so that's why. But you could say it differently. You could say that wasn't the norm, because it isn't the norm, because people want to live together for many reasons, to have a family, to have support, to have sexual relations, they hopefully loved each other. But these are the ones that weren't the norm. And maybe the Gemara is bringing them so that we'll know you shouldn't do this. When you do this, it doesn't usually end well.
Well,
Like even the way that he learns about his son, that's not a nice way to learn about it, right? It's not a warm way to learn. Like if they had randomly met each other in this local Beit Midrash, because the son clearly learns there, he stopped there to send a letter, however you did that then, maybe paid somebody, I don't know. Then, and there had been a warm reunion. Oh, I see that you ask great questions. And he might say, I'm overwhelmed, I can't answer your questions. Like I would have preferred that instead of growing faint, that it might have been, but that you'd have to look at the Aramaic to see what the Aramaic word is. So it would have been like, I'm overwhelmed with emotion. I love that I have a son like this. And look how much I missed. And look how much I missed when I wasn't here. But that's not the story. Yes, Karen.
It just makes me think of Moshe for some reason. And
how he removed himself from his family, how it upset Miriam, even though he was the best Eved Hashem that we've ever had, but still he removed himself entirely from his family, and his wife and sons suffered from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know his wife did. We'll assume his sons did. I would imagine.
Yeah.
In fact, we hear he gives time for Yehoshua, who ends up being his follower. Yes. Ellen, what did you want to say? Thank you, Karen.
Most sounds, though, as if he didn't even know he had a son. When he said, if I had
Oh.
stayed here, I could have had a son like
Oh,
this,
wow. Like he forgot he had a son?
or that he never knew it. Maybe he left before
Well,
the
if
son
that's
was even
true,
born.
well, then he would only be 12 years old. So maybe, but that's possible.
Well, he's a student. He's a child.
He said if I'd stayed here, I could have had a son like this. I'm hearing something a little different. I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, I don't know the ages, but it could have been more, if I had been here to teach my son, obviously there's another father who invested in his child, and then this child grew up to be this Talmid Chacham, this wonderful Torah student. Maybe if I had stayed here, I could have, so he's feeling remorse. That's what I'm hearing, Ellen. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. It's a different way of reading it.
Also, he's
I
a
hear what you're
rabbi.
saying.
He's a rabbi, so he had to be grown up already.
Right. Oh, that's a good point too. Oh, that's actually a good point. Yes, that's a good point. Okay, so that's helpful. Yes. Alice, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. We don't know in this 12 years he could have died and there was no communication.
Who
And
could have died?
so,
The son?
no, the rabbi
Rabbi
who went
Chaim.
away to study.
I mean, I imagine if Chas v'Chalila he had died, that the Beit Midrash, the study hall, would have let his family know, no? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I don't know. And so the wife would have been like an aguna.
No. I don't think she would have been an aguna. I disagree with you. I think an aguna is when you don't know that the husband died. They know in the Beit Midrash, they know who he is. Like you're talking about, I think, and why would she think she's chained? Like that's only if I guess if she's looking, she would travel to the Beit Midrash and.
Okay.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just think that they did know about each other and that there was. Are you saying that because he didn't send a letter from the Beit Midrash, but from the local one? I think they could have found out, but I hear what you're saying, that there's it was
such a long time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that for
communication.
Sure. Yeah, no, for sure that. So let me just read some of the chats. Reminds me of the story of Joseph being far away from his father and family for so long. And Elisheva wrote, I think he regrets not spending time with his son. He should be a rabbi instead of a father, you're saying, Elisheva, or he shouldn't, or wait, what were you thinking here? I'm not trying to understand your comments. You want to share? He should be a rabbi instead of a father. Okay, so if you want to unmute at some point and, he chose to, oh God, it shows. Maybe you speak
She does.
Spanish or something.
Does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, she does.
I understand. So
she's from Cuba. She's from
Cuba. Welcome, lovely. So what we're hearing here, thank you. That's a beautiful way to say it. Maybe he's regretting that he chose to be a rabbi and somebody who sits and studies instead of a father. Yes, I hear that, but I totally understand if somebody else hears something different. Did we lose? Oh no, they're there. Okay. Any other comments? Yes, please. Who's that?
Judy, yes.
Judy, yes.
I think, if you asked in the beginning of the session, you were outlining our plan of what we were going to be discussing. And you said, like, we were going to get to what's the takeaway. A suggestion for a takeaway is part of Kibud Ava Aim. We should be in touch with our parents. And
so you're saying the onus was on the son who should have gone to visit. Oh, nice.
Just like with Yosef. it was, yeah, he's this big shot viceroy, but he didn't have time to send a letter to his father saying, Father Yaakov, I'm here, and let's get back on track, Father.
Right. Well, Judy, you're saying he didn't have time. You
Oh,
know
well,
that you mean he didn't take the time,
exactly.
rather, what was the reason that he didn't do it?
You mean that
Obviously, he missed his father. Obviously, he cared about his father. But if he had sent the letter, of course, he would have revealed himself to the brothers, and he was playing out the story. So you're saying not good enough for you.
I think he should have, reached out to his father when he was wherever. He should have kept in touch with his father.
Right. So I think that in that case that Joseph saw a grander plan from God, but I hear your pushback against that. Maybe we'll learn about that in 1 year. It's a
Okay.
great topic. I think it's a wonderful topic. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on the Gemara? Remember, the stories in the Gemara are often succinct, and sometimes they go into detail in certain places and less detail in others, and there's a reason for it. So that's, as people notice here, why is this missing? Why is that missing? We can say why are these details in, and why were other details left out? I think this line of "and grew faint" absolutely shows his emotional state.
Was this did Dr. Calderon, is this one that she read at the Knesset?
Oh, I don't know which one she
Oh,
read.
you don't
Might
know.
have read a daf of time. I don't know which one. No, I don't know. She took in this book, I can tell you how many stories there are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There are 17 stories in this book.
I'm just fascinated that she would learn Talmud with them.
I know, isn't that? So I
It's
don't know what she wrote
amazing,
with them. Yeah.
amazing.
I would actually suggest to people that if you do get this book, and that you should learn it with a chavruta, that you should sit with a woman, man, doesn't matter, somebody, go over the Gemara first, do exactly as I'm doing now, meaning try to learn the Gemara on your own, or ask the questions really more than anything else, and then read her story. And then she has a follow-up to her story that she writes, which has her thoughts. That's how she does each one of them. Okay, great. I wanted to ask, what about the wife? There's one line. First of all, the wife is addressed twice. One of them is that he didn't want to have tragic consequences for the wife. And the other one is, what does she say to him? Does a father stand before his child?
He reproaches him.
She approaches him?
Reproaches him.
Oh, reproaches, yes. Is there any warmth? Like he went home. I might have imagined his wife was so happy to see him. They embraced.
Right.
So do we feel like the wife is happy with him?
No,
Oh,
no, like it's like she's angry.
Uh-huh.
And she tells him about the relationship, that a son doesn't stand the father is standing before the child. In other words,
So as Estelle pointed out, she doesn't say it in the nicest way.
no.
Right? She could have said many things, but she could have said, this is your son. Isn't he amazing? He's so special. He's so smart. He's grown up so much. Enjoy,
She sounds very angry.
Yes, she sounds angry. So we have Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa, who seems to be feeling regret. Now he does love his wife, it sounds like. Why? Because he said when he planned to return home, I will not do what Ben Chakinai is. So he's thinking about a story that he heard, and he says, I don't want my wife to be so shocked when I come home. So he does think about her, but as somebody pointed out, Alice, that he seems to have forgotten that he has a son, because you don't hear about his son. So his son is absolutely not foremost in his mind. It's only when he meets his son that he gets this feeling of regret. Well, and we know that the wife seems to be angry and upset, understandably. And now the question, maybe, by the way, Estelle, when you were saying it is the culture of the time, maybe the culture of the time was not that everybody went away to Beit Midrash for 12 years, but the culture was that you don't bother your husband if he does go away. Maybe that was the culture. So she felt, oh, I can't bother him, right? That most important, got to learn Torah if he's choosing not to come back. Then Now, what do we think the son thinks? We've talked about the husband, we talked about the wife, but we haven't talked about the emotional state of the son. What are we thinking? I gave a suggestion. I'd love to hear what other people think, and then we'll read the story.
Well, the son was probably curious about this absent father. He was, anybody would be curious. Any son, I think, or any child would be curious about a parent. I would think so.
And I want you to notice it says he went home. Isn't that beautiful? He went home. That's his home. The Beit Midrash is not his home, or it's not his emotional home, because he wants to come home. It pulls him to come home. So the son comes in behind him, doesn't realize it's his father, which is also interesting. Think about it.
But why do you say that?
Wait, I haven't finished. Just let me finish my sentence.
Yeah.
Because if he was 12, you don't think he'd recognize his father after 12 years?
But out of all the people in the Beit Midrash, it says there, came and sat before him.
Right, but he was also a stranger, right? So we don't know why he came and sat before him.
Exactly.
So he saw him as a stranger. We don't know he saw him as his father. If he saw him as his father, Karen, I'm upset that he didn't say, Father, it is me, it is I, or embraced him, or I want to tell you what I learned.
Okay, so
they seem to be interacting as strangers. Now, but I agree with you. So here's what I'm thinking. Maybe he didn't realize that he knew his father, but maybe something in his father pulled him. Like, wait, something familiar, something pulled him. I love that. I love that, because even if he is a stranger, why would you randomly go sit in front of a stranger and start asking questions? So yes, so maybe he did actually felt something. Connection. Yeah. Excuse me, but maybe his father really looked different, or that he was so young. I mean, he could have been 8 theoretically, and now the son is 20. Is that right about that? No, 18. Yeah, 20, 12 years or 10. So it is possible he was young enough that he wouldn't recognize. It's possible that he sort of forgot.
And then he followed him home. So that's.
Well, it's his home also.
Right. So, yeah.
But yes, he's watching him and maybe thinking, is this my father? Maybe that's what he's thinking. I'm not sure. He seems familiar, but he didn't recognize me. So don't know what he's saying. All right. Somebody sent something in the chat. Let me just check, and then I'm going to read the story.
I wanted to say something.
Wait 1 second. Let me just read this. Rabbi Yoshai doesn't use ben. Oh, sign of disconnection. Nice. Beautiful. So what Elisheva pointed out is that it says Rabbi Chama bar Bisa, meaning he's mentioning his father's name, but Rabbi Yoshaya is not called Rabbi Yoshaya bar Rabbi Chama. Maybe there weren't a lot of Rabbi Yoshayas, but still, that's a really great read of that. I love that. Thank you for noticing. Yeah, Estelle, you wanted to say?
No, I just felt that there was a complete disconnect there.
For sure. But what I'm adding to that, not but, yes, and what Elisheva said is she's also reading the disconnect into the words of the Gemara, because Rabbi Chama bar Bisa uses his father's name, but Rabbi Yoshaya does not. So she's adding to it by saying, yes, there's even a textual proof of that, or support. Okay, everybody, get ready for story time. Yes.
I wanted to say something. May I?
Who is this?
Leela.
Leela, yes.
Yeah. So I wondered if the son felt torn between the mother and the father, and that the mother, in her anger, had sent him as some kind of emissary. And, so he was...
Wow. But she got the note.
So
right?
he felt
because she got the note, so she sent him to the Beit Midrash.
Yeah, but he wasn't able to reveal his identity, and he felt really torn between the parents.
Yeah, but then you're assuming that the son knows knows that that man is his father.
That's exactly what she's assuming. She's saying the mother got the note because he sent a note. She sends the son and says, but she's angry, she's upset. Don't reveal yourself. See if he recognizes you. I mean, that's what I'm imagining you're saying. And so the son doesn't quite know what to do. So he says, well, maybe I won't tell him who I am, but I'll show him who I am by asking questions of law. Wow. Very powerful. Thank you. So, we are conjecturing.
It's
However,
not nice.
it's not nice, but we're conjecturing based on the text, right? That's the whole point, is that we're conjecturing based on text. Okay, now let's get.
I'm sorry. A son cannot do that. I mean, a son is not going to expose his father to that kind of emotion I just don't see
So
that.
Estelle
at
thinks
all.
he actually didn't recognize. Okay, that's why we leave it open. We accept everybody's suggestion and we leave them for people to accept or to reject. That's fine. So Leela thinks that maybe it was, and you think that no, he either wasn't sure or he just didn't know, completely didn't know. Great. All of those are possibilities. Yeah, Carolyn.
If he didn't know it was his father, why would he follow him home?
Well, it's his home also. I don't know that he followed him home. He might have
Yeah.
gone home.
Well, he came in behind him.
Well, he was probably wondering, what is this man
Yeah,
doing?
what is this
coming-
man doing going to my
Yeah.
house? I just
Yeah.
want to say, it says he went home. Rabbi Yoshaya entered behind him. It's missing a line. The line could have said Rabbi Yoshaya went to his home. That's what's not written in there.
Mm.
But that's what we're assuming. We know that. So it's like leaving that dangling. There's a lot of it's always true about the Gemara, but I love the dangling parts. The dangling parts allow us to learn from it. Otherwise, it's more boring. We just read it and go home. But this is more interesting. Okay, now whether we don't know which of all these are true, not true, makes sense, really happen, but it's for us to learn from. And I do believe that the Gemara put this here for us to learn from this. Don't do this. It's not going to end well. Okay, so now I'm going to read. So everybody take your cup of tea or whatever you want. I'm going to read. This is what Ruth Calderon wrote. How long had he been away? 12 Passover Seders, 2 times 12 celebrations upon completing a tractate of the Talmud, 12 spring terms, and another 12 fall terms. There were other ways, too, of measuring his days in the study house. 36 pairs of shoes from the cobbler, hundreds of Shabbat meals at the homes of strangers, and thousands of simple lentil dinners during the week. For 12 years, he had lived in an inn, lacking a real home. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa's memories of home were a series of dream scenes. His wife's eyes, the little toddler always underfoot, the 2 rooms behind the yard of his father's home. At the time, the chance to leave home and study in a Talmudic academy far away had beckoned invitingly, so he set off. In the first few years, he would write letters home, but after a while, it was hard for him to do even that. He found refuge in the routines of daily learning. From time to time, he found himself in the arms of strange women. He thought of his son often and took comfort in these memories. At first, they had expected that Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa would be a great scholar, but he did not have his father's brilliance. He mastered what he was taught, but he did not stand out. He calmly absorbed the material and did not bombard his teachers with complicated questions. By now, 12 years later, it was clear that he would not be asked to stay and teach. The bright dreams of his youth had faded into a lackluster reality. In the last few years, he was drawn less to the Talmudic page and more to the interesting scenes out the window, a father teaching his trade to his son, a man chatting with his wife, a bridge being built over the river. His fellow students began returning home to teach and serve as leaders in their local communities, some of them already accompanied by a legion of students of their own. But no students flocked to Rabbi Chama. He was a bit jealous, and his jealousy was tinged with regret about the son he had left at home with no father to teach him the alphabet, let alone Torah and Mishnah. When he finally decided to turn home, he did so slowly and methodically, as was his nature. First, he asked permission from the head of the academy, who bestowed his blessing with alacrity, giving Rabbi Chama pause to wonder about what he had not become. He finished the passage they were learning, and he took his leave from his fellow students, as well as from the river's roads and the narrow room in which he had slept. 12 years had passed like a dream. In his final month, he walked the familiar roads like a ghost, as if he had already departed. The journey, which had seemed so long when he came, seemed shorter on his return. He was surprised to realize that it was not so far. He could have returned home at least once or twice over the course of the past 12 years. Each time he would pass a young man chopping wood or driving a wagon or selling fruit, he thought of his own son. Had his boy learned a trade? Did he know how to sign his name? The rumors about Ben Hakinai, a fellow scholar in the academy, who had frightened his wife to death when he returned home without warning after many years away, had spread among his fellow students. When he approached the hills that surrounded his village, Rabbi Chama was preoccupied by that horrible scene. She lifted her eyes, her heart saw him, and her soul escaped. He had resolved that he would not do what Ben Hakinai had done. A written note was already waiting between his folded clothes. His wife knew how to read the letters of the alphabet. In letters as large as those used to write the blessing over the new moon, which had to be legible even at night, he had written, "Coming home in blessing and peace," and had signed Rabbi Chama. His wife would prepare the home in his honor. A candle would be lit. The table would be set as befits a man of Torah. He smiled to himself. He was flooded with a sense of pure and total happiness. His legs carried him over the hills to the village as if the road were gliding underneath his feet. As planned, he did not go home immediately, but turned first into the small local study house. There, as a child, he used to sit on the bench attentively and dream of becoming an important scholar, like those who visited from afar, like his father. Now he sat waiting until he could be sure that his letter had reached home. Then someone approached him, and he was jolted out of his reveries. A local student recognized his cloak, the type of cloak worn by those who study in the distant academies. The boy greeted him with words of blessing and sat down before him. Rabbi Chama was pleased to see this young man eager to learn from him. This had always been his dream, that local students would thirst for his Torah. The young man, without any preamble, rushed into questions from a chapter in the tractate of the Talmud that deals with property damage. The young student was well versed in the details of the law, and his thoughts were well organized. He repeated the complicated passage from memory. A pipe irrigates the yard of a neighbor. The owner of the roof where the pipe originates, comes to close off the pipe. The owner of the yard stops him, reasoning, just as you have a right to my garden as a place to spill your water, so too do I have a right to the water from your roof as a way to irrigate my garden. He paused, and the expression on his face bespoke calmness and command. It seemed to Rabbi Chama bar Bisa that he was among the finest students in Babylonia. The man said, "We hold that he has a right to stop his neighbor from closing off the pipe. What do you hold?" he asked Rabbi Chama with rapt attention. Rabbi Chama tried to answer, but he could not. The passage did not register in his mind. His swarming thoughts impeded his concentration. If only I had stayed here, he thought. I could have had a son like this. He struggled to collect his thoughts and then said, "No, he cannot stop his neighbor." The young boy looked at him in surprise. Rabbi Chama was disturbed by a vague memory. His father, he recalled, had ruled that the man could indeed stop his neighbor, as had the young boy. The time for the afternoon prayer passed while they were absorbed in intense study. The student did not leave him alone like a hungry man who seizes upon a hot loaf of bread. The teachings of Rabbi Chama helped the young student sort out parts of the picture. Some arguments were new to him entirely, and some shed new light on what he already knew. Something of the discomfort that was always there between Rabbi Chama and his father was present too, between Rabbi Chama and the young student. A sense of self-doubt nestled uncomfortably in Rabbi Chama's heart. When they eventually stood to pray the afternoon prayer, he saw that the student was taller than he was. The student moved lithely and prayed fervently, his legs planted in the ground and his eyes tightly shut. Rabbi Chama remembered his home, a place of rest and of shelter. His feet hurt from the journey. He finished praying quickly and set his steps towards home. Passers-by greeted him with blessings, but looked at him quizzically as if trying to remember why his face seemed so familiar. He came to the small alley where his house stood, painted an inviting shade of blue. The pathway in the yard had recently been washed, and the pleasant smell of fresh leaves hung in the air. Rabbi Chama, flushed with emotion, cried out in greeting and opened the door. Careful not to rush in too suddenly, he hesitated on the threshold for another second. His fear was dispelled by the familiar sound of his wife's voice. His eyes, which had still not adjusted to the darkness of the home, was greeted by a figure in a brightly colored robe. He was surprised that he had forgotten how beautiful she was, how freely her body flowed when she walked. He was so happy that he had come home. They looked at one another and did not speak. He enjoyed the silence. He sat by the table, the oil lamp lit as on Shabbat, and the table laid out for two, as it had been each day before he left. He turned to wash his hands and to freshen his face from the journey. The cup of water he poured over his hands trembled when he held it. When he returned to the room and came to sit by the table, the bright student whom he had met earlier in the local study house entered. Rabbi Chama was taken aback. He realized that the student had probably come to ask him more questions. He was not thrilled about resuming their conversation, especially not in front of his wife. Still, he felt he had no choice but to stand up out of respect for the student and his breadth of knowledge. A long moment of silence passed until he heard the voice of his wife tinged with a trace of irony and bitterness. Since when does a father rise before his own child? He slowly lifted his eyes and gazed at his son, who was sitting at the table, holding the cup of wine, looking very much at home.
I like the end.
Who said that?
I did, Judy.
What do you like about the end, Judy?
It sounds like there was some closure to the like a tikkun in the relationship
Whose relationship?
between the father and the son.
Beautiful love story. Nice. Between the father and the son. Nice. Looking very much at home and comfortable. Who do you think so I want to focus on a few things. The table was laid out for two as it had been before he left. So I'm thinking, we still don't know the age when he left, but it said, according to her, it sounds like before he left, the child was young and maybe ate at a different time. And that's why the table was only laid out for two. But who is the table laid out for two here?
It could be for the father and the son.
Ah, not the wife. Wow.
Originally but then once the son came home, was only overjoyed. She happily said.
Well, it said tinged with irony and regret. So,
But if
Yeah.
he was a yeshiva student, would he be coming home, for dinner? If he was a yeshiva,
I guess so.
probably
If he's in
not.
a local house, why do you think that? He probably ate at home. No, you don't think, especially not leaving his mother alone since his father wasn't there. You don't think so?
That could be, yeah.
Okay. Keep going. More thoughts?
Well, she probably didn't know what day the father was coming back. So it was probably her and her son.
So it might have been set for her and her son. Yep.
But it says wine cup. So was it Shabbat? Was it Friday?
No, I think that's what they drank. It
They
was
just drank it.
it was a wine that didn't have quite as much alcohol content, and it was what they used to drink because other drinks used to get sour. So it's a kind of. I
Okay.
think that's an interesting thing.
Okay.
You said that it might have been Shabbat.
I mean, if she knew her husband was coming too, then she would have set the table for three.
She knew it was that day also. Yep.
But she obviously didn't know when it
There
was.
does seem to be a lot of not confusion perhaps, but non-clarity around the age of the son. And okay, what else? Any other thought? Let me just look. Somebody wrote something in the chat. Oh, beautiful love story. Okay. What else?
But we're learning that he thinks of his son as a toddler. That's a memory that he has. So the son was very young and probably didn't have any memories of his
Well,
father,
according to her, right?
according to her.
Yes, I agree. So I think somebody pointed out, Alice points out that he's called Rabbi. maybe he's called Rabbi just as a person. Maybe at 18 he had smicha. I don't know. It sounds like he was quite precocious. I just want to remind you that according to her story, the reason that he's Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa is because his father had a real name. His father was brilliant, according to her story, but he didn't show the same promise. But his son does. Kind of skipped a generation.
Right.
Which, I just want to say, like, it's not his fault if he's not as brilliant as his father. I always have trouble with that. It's very easy to measure people by how bright and how witty and how sharp. That's great. But, a lot of it is just who the person is. So, if somebody is blessed with a sharp mind, great. And if somebody isn't so blessed with a sharp mind, to hold it against them, like, just doesn't feel
Right.
good to me. So it also feels, according to her story, that in the study hall where he was, they were waiting. They were saying, oh, he must be like his father. He'll be brilliant. He'll be an amazing teacher. And as she writes, actually, in her thoughts, she says, Rabbi Chama, fleeing the sense of mediocrity and dullness he feels in his small village, seeks greatness in the Talmudic academy, but he will find mediocrity and dullness wherever he goes. Because, at the end of the story, despite his, okay, one second. We'll get to that. Sorry. I'll get to that. I don't want to say that. But he finds it in his son.
He seems to have a very poor self-image.
Yeah.
I think that's throughout the story. I didn't meet expectations. Then he meets this young boy, this other yeshiva student who turns out to be his son. And as soon as the son begins talking, he too says, oh, such brilliance. That's not me, so I think there's a very poor self-image.
Right. And in addition, it's not me. I wasn't the one who taught him that. Like, if, let's say, you're not and you hoped to be, but you teach your son and he grows up to be brilliant, that's often a good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, just like we saw in the Gemara, there's a lot of remorse here throughout her story.
She writes here, at the end of the story, Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa, despite his best intentions, is in a sort of similar, I added sort of, is in a similar position as Rabbi Hanania Bar Chakinai, the one whose wife died when she saw him. It seems that for both men, the real problem was how long they had stayed away and not how they returned. And these, by the way, these stories are told one after the other in the Gemara. So it does seem to be giving a message. Don't do this, guys, right? It won't end well. Even though she rewrites it a little bit warmer than the story in the Gemara, that's true. But it's still not feeling good. And then you're going to wonder how can he repair this? I think it is possible for him to repair it, by the way, because he cares. Like, remember how happy he was when he came home. His regret was, I didn't come home more often. But what the Gemara is saying, even if it's not your wife who will suffer so much, then your son will suffer so much, or you'll suffer for not having been there for your son. Like, there are many levels of how it can end poorly. We don't need 5 stories about how it ended poorly with the wife. Here's one with the wife. Here's one with the son. You should be there to bring up your child.
Right. Also, he had a fraught relationship with his father.
Yes, according to her, right? Yep.
And we all know that you often repeat the mistakes that your parents made.
That's
You find yourself
true.
sounding like your parents, and hopefully we stop ourselves.
Right. No, but that's true, because it says, as again, according to hers, because we are using her interpretation after we did our own, he seeks greatness. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. The 4-7. Oh, I guess in her story, she says that
Yeah.
he went, right. In her story, she says that he went to the Beit Midrash like his own father did.
Right.
So here's the thing. Just listen to me a second. His father wasn't there to bring him up for him to be sharp and brilliant by, maybe by teaching him from a very young age. Because we know, my brother who teaches, he's a professor of math and physics, he said to me, not just to me, but he said that the best students, yes, there's always some who are off the charts, brilliant, that they don't need. Okay. But he said the best students are the ones who do every problem set. You don't have to be so sharp and brilliant to be very good at what you do. And it's still true. There are brains that are, that are just going to always be brilliant. But in general, the most of the population, he said, the ones who do the best in his classes are the ones who do every problem set. That they go, they sit there, they don't give up, they keep doing it over and over. I just read, sorry about one of the soldiers who was killed, so sad, that the stories, the eulogies, my brother sent the eulogies, and one of the eulogies about this boy who, without any shame, he had trouble learning. And he used to go and even take children's books to learn Hebrew better. He might have had dyslexia or something like that. And this rabbi told a story about how he used to come and just, he didn't read well. And he said, how do you daven? He said, I daven whatever I learned in school. Matova, he said, would you like me to learn with you? For a year, every week, he would teach him prayers by heart, and he would repeat them over and over without any, remorse or regret or shame that he didn't do better. He always brought it. He said to him, how are you so happy given this? He said, why would I want to add sadness to my burden? I have enough going on. So I love that, he sat and did it. And so somebody else who could read in a second or has an amazing memory could get it quickly, but this person didn't give up. And he ended up being this really amazing, inspiring person who very, 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 very sadly was killed as a chayal. And it's awful for everybody and for his parents, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, maybe his father wasn't there to teach him, and that's why he grew up as he did, but his son maybe benefited either from a sharper mind or from somebody else. Maybe there was a different person who taught him.
Yeah.
So that's how the
What is
book
a protagonist? What is the word protagonist? What does that mean? Somebody explain to me.
The chief object.
person,
Chief
character.
Person who moves the story, the narrative along.
So what what were you saying, Karen?
Is that how this book is? She takes a portion of the Gemara and she writes
a story that's a difficult story. She writes a story on it, her own interpretation,
her own interpretation,
adds an analysis of why she did. So I want to read to you a little bit of what she said. The tragedy of this role, she says it echoes the story of Oedipus, the son who took his father's place. And we do see there's two people, the two people was set for was probably the mother and son. We don't know for sure, but it seems like it. And she quotes, and then slept with the mother. So that we're not assuming happened. The tragedy of this role reversal leads to the son's slaying of his father. You might say that Rabbi Chama bar Bisa is destroyed by the son's sharp mind. Like you were saying, he doesn't have a good image. Now he has an even poorer image of himself, even though he might be proud of his son. But he's like, I'm not the one who taught him to do that. I never managed, and here I'm coming back. So I think there's almost always room for forgiveness and for tikkun. I believe that. And I think if he, I think it could end better after this and say, I made a mistake. I missed out on those years. I had a dream. I tried to fulfill it. I didn't fulfill my dream. I missed out. I want to be part of the family again. Let's think of the best way to do it. I mean, they didn't have psychologists then, so, right? So I don't know if anybody said that. No, coaches and therapists or somebody to give him pastoral advice. But if the wife in some way at least still loved him and the son, you could repair. It might be hard, but it would be better than, him going away again, I think. 1 second. It is possible that like Oedipus, who was pained when he realized what he had done, the son of Rabbi Bar Chama bar Bisa, was deeply distressed when he discovered that his father was the rather unimpressive stranger. Now, again, he could have been unimpressive also because he was overwhelmed that he had encountered in the study house. But the protagonist of the story is not the son, but the father who realized too late. So again, that's what the story in the Gemara says, that it's too late. I'm saying it's never too late. I once went to a Shiva house. I want you to know, one of my first Shiva houses I did here. And I was told that there was a fraught relationship with the person who passed away and with his children. But the children told me that in the last 2 or 3 years of his life, he apologized. Whatever he did, he had alcoholism or drug abuse, and he actually went to get clean. And he did a lot of asking forgiveness and recognizing, and it repaired so much of their bitterness. And then he passed away from an illness or from whatever complications of whatever he had done to abuse his body. I'm not sure. But it was a beautiful thing to actually be able to hear the tikkun, the repair that happened. And that was far worse than what happened here, I think, because he had actually done abuse. Although you could say it's abuse by being neglect, that's a possibility. So I'm also going back to what Estelle said, that he had these models to model after, and he may have thought this is the right way to do things mistakenly. Oh, Rabbi Akiva, oh, my father, and my father was so brilliant and so respected. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Made a mistake. Let me just see. Rabbi Chama traverses several distances over the course of his life, from his father's home to his wife's home, from the small local study house to the large Talmudic academy far away, but in none of these places does he find peace. And perhaps this is very interesting. This is a historical note, which I thought was beautiful. Perhaps the story is giving voice to the dispute between scholars of Israel and Babylonia about whether a student should leave home to study Torah. I'm going back to what Estelle said to us at the very beginning. Perhaps because there was a whole thing that the two stories attest to of Rabbi Chakni, whatever his name was. What was his name? The one who Chakinai, and the one of Rabbi Chama bar Bisa. The two stories attest to a strong opposition to the practice of living as a married hermit, which was common in Babylonia, or somewhat common. And maybe the storyteller is ascribing a certain power to a man's wife. You say in the Talmud, it says, Ishto kibeto, that his wife is his home. Because in the Talmud known as his home, only in her presence can a man find true inner peace. Okay, she says, you know what, I'll read you the end. The Torah teaches in the image of God God created them male and female. In other words, as the story may be suggesting, first a man must find a woman, bind himself to her, and only then can he reflect the image of God and live a life of Torah. That is a beautiful takeaway, and that I love. Oh, I'm seeing smiles. That's good. Yeah, so
I feel bad for single people if that's interpreted.
you're right. And I should never smile like that and forget that there could be a person in the audience, thank you, who either was or is single and is feeling that. I think that the Gemara struggled with people who were single, and they spent a lot of time on that. So for those who are able to find either a partner or a good friend, that's also a good thing. Or some people I know who are single have amazing relationships with their nieces and nephews, which can also be very beautiful. I understand it's not the same as a partner, but I think that's true. And thank you for reminding me. So that's Ruth Calderon. I've wanted for so long to bring one of her stories, and I finally decided I'm going to do it because I really wanted to introduce
Thank you.
this
Thank
book.
you so much.
She
And
really
you
is a
read
modern
beautifully.
Jewish thinker.
Thank you.
She really is a
do.
modern Jewish thinker.
Yes.
And so this was one direction, and Bezrat Hashem in 3 weeks. So I think Shira, Rav Stephen's wife, who is amazing, and that philosophy, I think, is her thing. So she's going to bring you another modern Jewish thinker, and Rav Stephen's going to bring you Nechama Leibovich, who is an amazing, amazing thinker. And then I'm going to bring Rabbi Jachter's book, which, as I said, I'm in the middle of reading about. It's not Why Be Jewish. I remember I did that last year. It's Why Believe in God for Orthodoxy, something like that, which I'm finding it fascinating. My big challenge is going to be to condense that book into an hour's teaching. But I'm excited to do that. That's a challenge I take willingly and happily. And I want to thank each person for coming on. It's always a delight. And even then, I will leave room for people to ask questions and to talk. It's not going to be just me talking for 60 minutes because that's not my style, not what I like. So I'm just going to pick out pieces to share, try to at least pick some of them, representation of the questions in the book and how he answers them. And then we'll leave some room for discussion. But I do want to, be able to represent what Rabbi Jafter is saying. Thank you. Thank you so much.
One more question. Any reason the book is called A Bride for One Night?
Because that's one of the stories.
Okay.
I think I said that in the middle, but I didn't say too much about it. A Bride for One Night is not the first one, interestingly. That's just the picture. I don't know why she took that picture. It's a hard story, very hard story, as is Sota. A Bride for One Night is on page 57.
Okay.
And let me just see if it's long. Oh, so I'm just going to read you the Gemara. When Rav would visit the city of Darshish, he would announce, "Who will be mine for a day?" When Rav Nachman would visit the city of Shach Netziv, he would announce, "Who will be mine for a day?" Haha, leaving you on a precipice.
Thank you.
Maybe we should read it next summer. I don't know. I'll
Oh,
have to
wait,
think.
and that's in the Gemara.
Oh yeah, that's a Gemara, but yeah, it's a tough one, right?
Wow.
Thank you. Hasta Baruch.
Makes
Bye
a
bye,
lot of
Thank you
everybody.
sense.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye bye, everybody.
It
Be
was
well.
great,
you.
great, great.
All right. Take
Yeah.
good care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Karen,